question. If you feel like you want to contribute, raise your hand. Hopefully by the end of this year, we know like most of your names, because we definitely recognize a lot of people in the room. But we'll just call on you, and you can say what you want to say. All right. So the first question is, so remember, the theme is interracial dating, not dating, or like relationships, dating or like platonic relationships, right? So the first one has to do with dating, though. So do you find that you date within your own race as a sense of security?
Maybe not security, but maybe just by convenience, because it's sometimes easier when you're dating in your own race to just bond on common things you may have just because from the like racial identity that both of you guys may associate to. There are some common traits or even experiences that you feel you can empathize with much more, and it's easy to just want to kind of maybe not go through the whole learning process, but this is just my personal experience. Not put it on anybody, and it's not even like that I always pick my race, but I think that this is something that I've felt in the past. Maybe somebody shares. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to like add on to Kat's point, like there are like very like deep parts of me that are like deeply rooted within my racial identity. So because of that, I would rather like date somebody within my own race. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't like look outside of my own race, but because of like my own lived experience and my upbringing, I would definitely like, you know, date somebody who's like in my own race. Sorry guys, I'm nervous. There's lots of
It's a big group, it's okay.
Any other thoughts?
Okay, how about, or, yeah, Jessica?
Or like own culture.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, because like I've been brought up to like only date like Caribbeans, because the Caribbeans knows what's up. Like, no offense, but like coming to school and having a lot more friends that are African, like I've learned so much. So like that just kind of like debunks that stereotype that like my family has put on me. So yeah, but like also like dating someone who's like my race but also my culture. That's what I've been taught.
Over there?
Yeah, like I'm from the Caribbean, Barbados, so yeah, we know what's up. Like yeah, for me, because being from Barbados, it's predominantly black, so that is convenient for me to date people who identify the way I do. So I agree that it's convenient, and it's also, yeah, I guess now that I think about it, I've only ever dated Caribbean people, so that's interesting.
What if you extend that to like platonic friendships? Do you find yourself more comfortable around a certain group of people?
So I mean, just from like the platonic perspective, I can definitely like I don't necessarily like seek people out, but like there's just sort of kind of this like vibe you get, like it's just you don't really get it with other people. Like I've even compared like my friendships with people from the Caribbean to my friendships with like people from like my community, and it's mostly white people, just putting that out there. But yeah, it's just there's a different level that you seem to understand, because like just from like a household, like the way I talk to my parents is not the way that my friends talk to their parents. I can just, yeah. I'm in the car and like my friend's talking to her mom, and she's saying some stuff that if I said to my mom, that would not fly. So it's just kind of that understanding of like there's certain things that like you can do with your parents and like you can do around people and they understand that, and then it's like with your friends you have to kind of explain, oh, I'm not doing this because I've kind of just been taught this way. Or sometimes it's just like they're like, why are you acting so weird? And you're like, well, I mean, and you have to explain it. So it's just, you know, that kind of, I guess, convenience, yeah. Good going around.
We had another hand over here. Yes.
It was me. Like, I'm from like the town. Like, I'm from Whitby. I don't know if anyone knows that. Yes. So like Whitby is like, it's not a very diverse town. So like it's kind of like growing up. It was more of like who I was like exposed to in the moment. Even though like I'm used to like being one of the only like people of color in my classes. So it's kind of one of those things, like most of my friends are not people of color, just because that's like who I was exposed to growing up, and that's kind of like the circle of people I was around kind of thing, so.
Oh, yeah.
I was just recommending.
All right, so our second question is, are dating preferences for other races a form of internalized racism? Or do you find like dating preferences is just dating preferences? And dating is just
if you're white, you date predominantly white people, like cool guys. If you're black, you date whatever. But when I think it becomes like a situation of racism, is like I don't date this person. Like I think that's especially from like a white person saying that I don't date black girls, I don't date Mexican girls, I don't date whatever. I think it's like okay to just be like, oh, this is what I tend to gravitate towards versus like saying no, like a harsh line, and that's just racist. That's just racism in my opinion, speaking my statements. But like that just doesn't make sense. Because like you're cutting yourself off to a huge group of people who are also human beings. So, yeah.
That's fair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? I know y'all were chatting.
Yeah.
Oh, right here. Behind us.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I usually like stay away from the language of preferences because, in my own opinion, I feel like there's a violence to talking about preferences, whether that be like, I prefer to not date trans people, or like folks who are non-binary, or like I don't date thick people or fat people, or whatever, or like I have a preference towards this person. There's like a violence towards that, and it's like, who have we deemed as beautiful and who have we deemed as desirable, and why is that, right?
Okay, any other thoughts?
Yeah.
I feel like people that usually generally also say, like, I have a racial preference towards this or that, it's usually also rooted in like stereotypes. So they say they have a racial preference to like I don't know, like black girls or Mexican girls because they're loud and like angry and like feisty or like fierce or whatever, and it usually like groups a whole bunch of diverse people into one big little box, which is what they're not, and then they refuse to see them as outside of that. And then when they meet someone that doesn't, I guess, adhere to that box that they've given them, then it gets a little complicated from that. So yeah, I do see it as racist because of that.
Picking up a part of Lois's point, no one wants to be a fetish.
Yeah.
So like,
understanding when a black person says, or a person of color says, I don't want to date someone who's white, because the reasoning behind it to me makes a lot more sense. A lot of the times the reasoning is more along the lines of like, you can't date your oppressor, things like that. That makes more sense to me than any reason you could give me as a white person for why you wouldn't want to date a black person, because by the word racism is usually like the power dynamic versus, you know, the oppressor and the oppressee. So when I hear a black person say, I won't date a person, like, or a person of color say, I won't date a white person, I think it's more of like a safety or like a scared person, like a defense thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's a white person, the only real logical thing they'll ever hear from it is going to be some kind of coded racism or microaggression that comes from it, which
I don't think anything is just anything on the question. Like, pretty much everything about us and our everything we like and every way that we are is shaped by the society that we grow up in, right? And so on the stereotypes thing, like society says certain things about certain groups of people. Like society groups people together in these groups that don't even make any actual sense, right? Just to like divide us and just to enforce these kinds of hierarchies. So, like, of course that's going to influence our preferences, I think. And so, and also when someone has like a preference for one group or another, even if you like assume a race is like a concrete thing, people within certain races are so diverse and different from one another. There's a lot more diversity within races than like between them, right? So if you say, so it just doesn't really make sense why you would have these kinds of preferences for entire groups unless it's a reason like what you were saying about like, you know, like I don't date white people, let's put that out there. But like I'm open to dating a white person, but like. Yeah, like when I see all the people who are all like hashtag Team Swirl, like why? What benefit is there to like a swirl relationship, right? It's generally just like so for everyone who doesn't know and is like what? It's like white people who like to date black people and black people who like to date white people and they're really proud of it, so they're all like I'm hashtag Team Swirl. It's absurd because like all it really is this white people fetishizing black people based off of their idea of what a black person is, and it's like internalized anti-blackness from black people. In my opinion, and then
Matthew, and then Siegel, and then
So jumping off on his point, I think it's very important to also say, so for example, if a black person says they don't want to date a non-black person of color, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of non-black people of color are like very anti-black, racist, and like that may like cause a lot of problems. So it's like if they ever said that, like it's 100% understandable as well.
Who do we have next?
Okay, I was gonna say I don't think it's racism, but I think it's more like I'm speaking from like black people because that's all I know. But I think it's like a bit more of like insecurities and the whole like ideas of slavery that were like embedded in their mind. So like, because we were always like told like black is not beautiful, like this is white is better and stuff like that. So basically, like the darker you are, like I feel like black people don't want to date them because like they're still not over the whole like ideology of slavery. So yeah.
Siegel was gonna talk, and then I think I saw Jess's hand.
Alright. So I'm gonna come at it from like a different approach, where I've definitely been a person of color who said I only want to date white people. And I think that comes from one, a place of where I grew up. So I grew up in a very small town in which I really haven't